So once again, my name is Lou Minuta, and I'm the president of People for the Play Water Resources. We're the ones who are co-sponsoring this event with the city of Willcox. And you've probably seen these flyers sitting around here today that we're doing. We're kicking off our Water is Life program, where we're raising money to help people hold water while they're waiting for their wells to get replaced after they go dry, because it can take several months. And so we're accepting donations at our booth and also on our website. You can do that as well. So in addition to that, all of the full bios and descriptions for each one of our sessions are on the materials that you have. And when the Water Fair is over, we have all the slides, and we're going to be posting them on our website in addition to the videos of the sessions. So they'll be available forever. So let's get started. We're very excited to have with us Sierra Kubicki, and she's going to be presenting on navigating PFAS in drinking water. Sierra is the Arizona Field Manager for the Rural Community Assistance Corporation. She'll be discussing PFAS, commonly known as forever chemicals, and we will learn how these substances can affect groundwater and private wells. She's going to touch on where they come from, how they move through the environment, potential health concerns associated with long-term exposure, and current drinking water regulations. So with that, I give you Sierra Kubicki.
Thank you so much, Lou. Hopefully that's not too loud or quiet for everybody. Very echoey room. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. As he said, this presentation is going to be on navigating PFAS in drinking water. I'm Sierra Kubicki with the Rural Community Assistance Corporation. I'll give a little background about who we are, what we're doing, and then we'll kind of dive in to the presentation itself. Heard a lot, there's a lot of questions about data centers. Unfortunately, that's not going to be included in this presentation. This is really geared toward just informing you guys, creating that awareness, education on what PFAS is, why it's here, and maybe some ways that you can deal with it if you have known contamination. A little closer? Okay. Okay, so just a little background of myself. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from ASU, go Sun Devils, and then I worked for the Salt River Project doing water measurement while getting my master's in analytics. And then I went to work for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, where I worked in the drinking water section, helping public water systems, such as, the city of Willcox, get into compliance with drinking water, helping them get funding, all that kind of stuff. And then I moved to Las Vegas a few years ago and worked for the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. I pretty much did the same thing there for Nevada Public Water Systems, but I was also the PFAS rule manager. So I really, and that's really when the PFAS regulations came out. So it was an exciting time, learned a lot about it. So hopefully I can give you guys something to take away today. And now I work for RCAC. Okay, today we're gonna answer a few questions. What is PFAS? Not a super technical explanation, but we'll talk about what it is. How did it get here? I know we hear a lot of different things, a lot of different areas. It's a sort of a big unknown. We're only getting into the drinking water regulations right now. There's a lot of other areas where it still needs to be under regulation, so things are moving, but moving a little slowly, of course, there. Could it be in your well? We're going to talk about opportunities for well testing. What does it mean for my health? Of course, that's the whole reason we're here, is it can cause adverse health effects, right? And hopefully I don't scare you too much, but we will cover what some of those are. And then going over some resources that you guys can have for testing, treatment, stuff like that. So again, some key takeaways. Just want to create education and awareness, not try to scare you guys, but inform you guys, right? I know PFAS is kind of a scary topic. We're going to stay out of the politics of it and just really focus on how we can help you guys if you have a private well, if you're on a public water system, just those resources to keep you informed. Also, having PFAS in your groundwater does not automatically mean immediate danger. It's not like an E. coli positive, right? It's a chronic contaminant, and it stays in the environment for a long time. So if you do have PFAS, there's a reason there's EPA set regulations. There's a lot of research behind it, so we'll kind of talk about that too. Oh, I didn't advance this, I'm sorry. Also, just some resources for private well owners. I know a lot of the people probably here today, I don't know if you're on a public water system, you're a utility like the city, or if you're on your own well, so we'll kind of go over that stuff. Talk about testing for those as well. Okay. So what is PFAS? I know we hear a lot of scary words kind of surrounding it. So they're man-made chemicals, right? Manufactured since the early 1940s. So they've been around for almost 100 years. They're super persistent within the environment because they are very, very difficult to break down. I've heard from a lot of different sources. I've attended a lot of PFAS trainings. People say there's 12,000 variations. People say there's 6,000 variations. So just know that there are a lot of different variations. It depends on what they're used for. We'll go through some examples of what materials include PFAS as well. But they are persistent because they have a very strong carbon fluorine chain. There's long chain and then there's short chain, but that fluorine carbon chain is what makes them very, very hard to break down. All right, so where do they come from? One of the biggest things is like non-stick cookware, right? We hear that a lot. A lot of the companies that sell non-stick cookware are gonna definitely promote that they're PFAS free these days. So I always tell family and friends, just go on their website, they'll promote that they're PFAS free if they are. Teflon, of course, shampoo and other cosmetics like eye makeup, nail polish are known to include PFAS. Even dental floss has been known for it. Candy wrappers, pesticides, pizza boxes. Excuse me, allergies are getting to me. Paints and sealants, and then other kind of home cleaning materials as well. Fast food packaging, unfortunately, has been known to have PFAS in it. Yeah, I think that's it there. So again, there's a lot of variations of PFAS. There's short chain and long chain. Each one kind of has its own cons, if you will. The short chain ones are going to be more of like the cosmetics, electronics, paints and inks. The long chain ones are going to be like firefighting foams, which have been known to have PFAS in them. The cleaning products, textiles, electronics, and stuff like that. So when we use these products, whether it's through waste or effluent, I keep forgetting to advance, I'm sorry. It gets into our water, right? You know, that's the whole reason we care about it, is because we can find it in our drinking water sources and we don't want that. So these are some of the main sources of PFAS. This is something from that I pulled from EPA. So drinking water, of course, is one of the sources that we find PFAS in. Depending on where you are and what industries you're near, waste sites, so soil and water, or near landfills have been known to have PFAS. Fire extinguishing foam is a big one. There's been a lot of new regulations coming out to prohibit the use of those just because they've been known to get into the groundwater. Facilities, consumer products, food packaging, again, biosolids in food. The fish that we have in our water sources, if the water source is contaminated and we eat the food, obviously, then we become contaminated with PFAS too, so. Okay. So Michigan, unlike many states, is really, really far in their PFAS journey. They've done a lot of work at the state level to address it. And so they created this really nice diagram to just kind of explain the flow of PFAS. It really is cyclic. It can't break down easily. It's not like other contaminants that we find that can break down and recycle through the environment in a natural way. So as you can see here, just like on the left, PFAS producing using industries, of course they have a discharge system. And even if they're doing it legally, it's permitted. Again, PFAS is not super regulated beyond drinking water. This is a very newly regulated contaminant, even though it's been around for so long. So it can get right into your river, your groundwater, and that's kind of how we find contamination most of the time. All right. So why PFAS stays in groundwater? Again, it has that super strong chemical bond, that carbon-fluorine bond, whether it's short chain or long chain, a super slow natural breakdown, like we're talking many, many years. And then groundwater does move slowly, so it's gonna stay in the environment for a very long time. So why private wells matter? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of funding and attention around private wells, as private well owners here may know. A lot of the funding, a lot of the regulations are for public water systems, right? That's where we see a lot of the attention. So I think it's really important to just reiterate, I know it's expensive and it's a hassle, just the importance of getting your well tested for PFAS, and we'll talk about that a little later too. So testing is voluntary. No one's coming at you saying you have to test your well for PFAS like they do for the public water systems. And then as a homeowner, of course, you manage your own treatment decisions, and we'll talk about a little treatment later. And then this is just a diagram kind of showing the movement of groundwater, right? I kind of showed you how PFAS gets in our water with the Michigan diagram, but this just kind of shows these contaminants move in plumes, which can be very slow. It depends on the contaminant. Sometimes they move in different manners, but as soon as that PFAS plume hits your drinking water well, obviously that's when your drinking water becomes contaminated. So, talk a little bit about the rules and regulations that EPA has set forth. Again, these are just for public water systems that are regulated by the state, as well as EPA. So right now, I know there's 6 on here. That was the original rule that came out a few years ago. And then recently they changed it to just regulate PFOA and PFOS. Sorry. So 4 parts per trillion, I don't know if you guys are aware, but that's a very, very small amount. We usually measure in like parts per billion, like arsenic is parts per billion, 10 parts per billion. So parts per trillion, when we first saw like the initial rule come out, a lot of the regulators kind of panicked and said, oh my gosh, like can we even measure down to that? So this was kind of a shock, and I have a diagram here to kind of show what that means. So 1 part per trillion is 10 drops added to the Rose Bowl Stadium, which equals 1 drop added to a large tanker truck, which equals 3 drops added to a 42-gallon barrel. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What a dork. So this is just kind of an interesting visual. It kind of has a shock factor to show you how small that really is. And I'll talk about it later, but there's a reason that we don't really have any certified laboratories in Arizona to test for PFAS at the compliance level, because it is such a difficult measurement to get to, basically. All right. Hopefully I don't scare anybody here, but we're gonna go into the health effects of PFAS. So this is from the Center of Disease Control. Of course, when EPA releases these regulations, they have to have that research and that data to back it up, why they're releasing these new regulations and requirements. So they found that it depends on the chain of PFAS as well. It's not all PFAS causes all of these problems, right? So, so certain PFAS like PFOA and PFOS can cause increases in cholesterol levels. PFOA and PFOS can also cause changes in liver enzymes, as well as small decreases in birth weight. PFOA and PFOS, again, those are the ones that are being regulated right now. They can cause lower antibody responses to some vaccines, And then there's also pregnancy-induced hypertension and preeclampsia, as well as kidney and testicular cancer, which is mostly PFOA. So just to kind of keep going on the health effects, right? So it can cause reproductive effects, unfortunately, such as decreased fertility, increased high blood pressure, developmental effects, increased risk of some cancers. Not all PFAS are cancerous. The ones that they found were cancerous are PFOA and PFOS, which are the ones that are being regulated. Reduced ability of the body's immune system to fight infections, interference with the body's natural hormones, and then again, that increased cholesterol, potentially. And everyone's reaction is different too, right? Some of us have some other, health issues or comorbidities that can cause issues too. Some people have higher exposures to PFAS if you're working in a PFAS environment or you work with PFAS containing materials. And then pregnant women tend to drink more water per pound of their body weight, right? So they could probably be more exposed if they're drinking contaminated water. And then children too is something to consider if the water, if they're consuming PFAS, contaminated water, they also drink more water and eat more food per pound than the average adult, so they could be more at risk. So just to reiterate, it is the responsibility of the well owner, whether it's private or public, to get it tested. So I encourage you guys to really ensure that you know what's in your drinking water. If you have concerns about potential PFAS, I encourage you to research your area, ask your neighbors, talk to your local businesses, see if they've tested, see if there's anything. I know data centers is a topic of discussion, which are known to also have PFAS contamination. So just being aware and talking to your local agencies and staying up to date on regulations and all that stuff. So these are a couple laboratories that you could reach out to. I don't believe they're certified to test for PFAS, but I believe they can ship the samples to an out-of-state laboratory that is certified. I believe, so ADQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, they have been doing a lot of PFAS testing for public water systems only in Arizona. And I believe they use the lab Eurofins, which tends to do a pretty good job. I think it might be in California. So I encourage you to just reach out and see if they're able to test. It is, it's definitely more specialized. We talked about how parts per trillion is a very, very small amount. So that's why not all labs can test for it. They have to be EPA certified, state certified. It is a little bit more expensive. I would say it's probably equal to getting like a full panel like you usually would for like the nitrates, arsenic, stuff like that. I would say it's anywhere between maybe 500 to 1,000, just kind of depending what lab you use. And if you reach out, you should definitely ask them if they use the EPA method 533 or 537. Those are the only approved methods for drinking water to get your water tested for PFAS. And then just to kind of reiterate why we care, right? I mean, you guys obviously care, you're all here today, but it affects human health, especially those with comorbidities, pregnant children, or pregnant women, children, and it helps with the environment, right? We want to preserve our environment. We love living out in these rural areas because it's so beautiful out here and we want to protect that. So we want to prevent further contamination by addressing any contamination that we know right now. And then of course it also helps, animal and agricultural health as well. All right. So if you know you have PFAS, we're just going to touch on some things that you could do in order to address it. So treatment, granular activated carbon, or GAC, has been approved by EPA as the best available technology to address PFAS in drinking water, as well as ion exchange and high pressure membranes. I'm so sorry. The High pressure membranes are going to be like your reverse osmosis, which is what we typically see as like what we call a point of use system, which will be the ones that you find under someone's kitchen sink. That is EPA approved as well to address PFAS. And then consolidation, if you are on your private well and you know you have PFAS, maybe you have some neighbors around that share a well, they don't have PFAS, it's just kind of another option. A cheaper option, or an option if you don't want to handle your treatment system on your own. And then of course there's New Source. New Source I always kind of warn people about because it's not a perfect fix. It's not 100% guaranteed to remove your PFAS, right? I've seen it a lot at ADQ. People have big nitrate issues and they drill a well very far away and they still have nitrate issues and it's expensive, right? So try to go to other routes if we can. So EPA has a lot of good information on their website. I encourage you guys to go look at their fact sheet. It talks about like home filters and what's going to be the best at removing PFAS, because not all filters are going to be able to remove as much as others. Currently EPA is not approved using point of use systems like those under the sink systems as full compliance options because they don't yet remove all the way down to the 4 parts per trillion. So again, the granular activated charcoal or carbon, that's going to be more of a chemical process in removing PFAS. Reverse osmosis is more mechanical. It kind of removes most of the things in your water, which would include PFAS. And then ion exchange resins are going to be used in like bigger systems. I know California has a lot of big ion exchange systems to address PFAS. And then again, New Source, just because I've seen it work, but I have seen it not work a lot. So just to reiterate, there's some pros. You could potentially reduce PFAS, eliminate other co-contaminants maybe, and it also would replace your older well, maybe your well's from the 60s, so that would increase the health of your well as well. But again, it's high cost, may not reduce PFAS. So just some questions to ask. Which of the 6 PFAS is above the maximum contaminant level? Which ones are you dealing with, short chain, long chain? Do you have other contaminants that you need to consider if you're talking about treatment systems for your home? Are there nearby sources to connect to, that kind of consolidation concept? And then what are your funding options as a private well owner? So there's a lot of resources. I kind of mentioned before, a lot of the funding and attention is towards public water systems, which is great because there's a lot of money out there. They call it the Emerging Contaminant Fund. It's being used a lot for helping public water systems across Arizona to eliminate their PFAS. But there's not a lot of funding options for private well owners. I'll go over one resource on the next slide, but I encourage you guys to also go on ADQ's website. They've been doing a lot of work, a lot of testing. I apologize I didn't include it in this presentation, but there is, I don't know if anyone's been on this website, but they do have like an interactive map, and it shows all the data that they've collected so far at public water systems. It looks like this. Sorry, it's very small. If you guys want the link to it, I can show you, just come talk to me after. But you just hover over it, it'll tell you exactly what the levels were. And you can look at nearby water systems for yourself. All right, so again, some resources. Rural Community Assistance Corporation, feel free to reach out anytime. No question is too small or abstract. Having worked with PFAS, and we have a couple other PFAS experts in our other states that we work with too. So we're always happy to help. And the reason we're here today is we've been working with ASU, who also has a booth out there doing private well testing across Arizona. So they're a great resource as well. ADQ, EPA Region 9, which is what we're in. And then I did want to point out that there is a program that USDA has. It's called the 504 funding, and it's for single family households. And there's some eligibility requirements, but you get funding to address like safety hazards or health issues that you have in your home. If you're 62 and older, I believe that you can get a grant up to $10,000 to address it. So like installing treatment if you have PFAS or other water contaminant issues. And then I believe otherwise you can get like 40 grand up to loan funding for that. So really interesting program. All right, I apologize I didn't update this since I gave the talk in Nevada. That's supposed to say ADQ, not NDEP. But just stay updated, like you guys are doing being here today. You're educating yourself and staying updated on anything that might help your situation, know your regulatory contacts, talk to industry experts, create those networks for public water systems, utilize your surveys and your privacy agencies. And then I always just join all of like the listservs, get updates from EPA and USDA, American Waterworks Association, and all those important partners. All right. Are there any questions? Yes.
So as an example, we had different types of filtration systems. So for like a reverse osmosis, how often does one have to change those membranes, if you will, to keep that the clarity of the PFAS?
Sure. I would say it probably depends on the level of your PFAS, right? And then it also depends on your water usage. Like it's summertime, people use a lot more water here. So I would say like every 6 months if your water usage is high. And then I would say probably a good range is 6 to 18 months, just depending on how much water you're using, because that's really the whole way that it works. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anything else? Yes?
So there are companies that you can, organizations that you can contact to possibly get reimbursed for the cost of having your well water tested for PFAS?
So I am not aware of any organizations right now that offer free PFAS testing. The free PFAS testing is for the public water systems that ADQ is working with. You might contact USDA and see if that funding falls under the testing. And I can send you a link for that too if you want. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot of opportunities for private well owners. Yeah.
Because I just looked it up real quick and it's somewhere between $100 and $400
Yeah.
to get that test done. But there is at least an option in Tucson for us.
Okay.
And so Culligan, they're saying Culligan.
Yeah, Culligan.
For PFAS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not a bad price. I've heard a lot higher. So yeah. Yeah, and our CAC, my organization, we do have a contract where we can do private well assessments. Unfortunately, PFAS is not on the panel, but we do all the other big hitters like arsenic, nitrate, E. coli, and stuff like that. So outside of PFAS, if you're curious, come get my card.
Yes.
So there's a lot of wastewater treatment plants and stuff that recharge their water in Tucson, basically all over the nation. And so as far as that requirement, parts per trillion, the requirements for the wastewater treatment plants, are they strict? They have to be regulated to minimize that amount, and how much is that amount? Have you tested it, or what are the regular values and stuff for parts of PFAS that come out of a treated?
Yeah. I would say, well, first of all, the 4 parts per trillion is only drinking water. Drinking water is the only category that actually has any regulations right now that are set forth. So for wastewater systems, I would say it depends on the facility. Like I live in Vegas, and the Henderson wastewater facility, they're really proactive in trying to limit the amount of PFAS that's in the waste, because that goes to Lake Mead, right? And that's our water source. So I think it depends on the facility. I'm sure people are testing, each facility is testing, but I'm not sure when a regulation would come out to really address that. Yeah, and I would think it would fall into like the groundwater permitting would be the next kind of regulatory phase. They'll have to start testing and show that they can discharge legally.
Any other questions? Susan?
Well, I wonder if they understand something about the mechanism of why, if these molecules are so stable and so long-lasting, that they have so many effects on people's health. Why don't they just go through our bodies and, back into drinking water or wherever?
A certain percentage does, arsenic, all of the arsenic we drink doesn't stay in our bodies. It recycles a little bit. So I wouldn't say 100% of the PFAS that you consume through drinking water stays in your body forever. I think there is some sort of percentage that is recycled out. But the ones that stay are obviously the ones that create harm in that way. And I'm not a doctor, sorry, so I can't.
Yeah, no, it just seems so reactive.
Yeah.
What's inside of this?
Yeah, and I would say, I want to say it's 20% of the PFAS in our bodies are from drinking water, and there's other ways that we can be consuming PFAS as well. I think they did some air testing near different activities, and one of the biggest things was near a construction site. They found PFAS within the air, and you can consume it that way as well. Yeah.
Any other questions? I did want to just bring up a couple of small items. One is that Sierra mentioned the USDA Rural Development Section 504 program. I know it's a mouthful. It's a combination of a grant or a 1% loan to replace your well, and the difference is your age, your income, etc. If you have questions about that, we've been working with them to help people get their wells replaced. The other thing is that earlier this year there was a settlement reached between the state attorney general and Riverview. An $11 million settlement that is designed to be used to replace wells. They're this gigantic 500,000 head feedlot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you can imagine all the water the cows need
Yep.
and all the crops to feed the cows.
Yep.
So if you live between, within 1.6 miles of a Riverview well, and there's a map, and how they came up with 1.6 miles, I really don't know. Then half of that fund, $5.5 million, is controlled by Riverview, and they have an application process. And if you live 1.6 miles or further away, then that funding is now with the Arizona Community Foundation. They're a large foundation, long-standing foundation up in Phoenix, and we're working with them as well, and we can help you with the application process to be able to get funding. The shortfall with these programs is that it's going to take at least 6 weeks to 6 months to get funded, assuming your application is acceptable, which is why we want to be able to help you with that. So it gets in the first time and it gets approved, as opposed to you wait 6 months, oh, you didn't put the right form in, and you get kicked to the bottom of the list. So we want to avoid that. That's a really long period of time if you don't have any water. So that's why we're doing the Water is Life Fund, to help people be able to hold water in the meantime. In the last week or so, I became aware of a different program called the Water Well Trust. Water Well Trust. They're also a long-standing program, and they pride themselves on quicker, less than 1 month turnarounds to get funding to replace wells. So if you have questions about that, come and see me or come to our table here. So
Yeah, that's great. This is why I say talk to your local experts.
yeah, I mean, we live this stuff, for better or for worse. So, but I wanted to thank all of you for coming, and for the next hour, you are free to walk around the vendors. There's a lot of places to eat close by here in Willcox, and then at 1 o'clock we have another presentation. Actually, that's the Audubon Society. Really interesting presentation. And at 2 o'clock, we're having a presentation from the Nature and Groundwater with the University of Arizona. They're the ones who have the big display out there. So we have a lot of more good stuff going on today. And if you join me, please, and thank you, Sierra, for that. And some questions as well.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you're stuck here all over. So, yes, Sierra's here to answer any questions.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.